Selectmen's meeting to order for Thursday, August 31st, and accept nominations for chairman.
I'd like to make a motion that I will serve from now till January 1st, and then Stan Rosaki will take over until the spring election.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? So our first item tonight is a public hearing on application of the Bolton Bean for a new annual restaurant-type wine and malt liquor license at 626 Main Street.
You as well.
Good to see you.
You as well. How's it going?
Oh, you're still working on it? Hank, how are you?
Fine.
John, how's it going? Linda, how are you? Good. Let's keep getting you out of work, huh?
No, I wish, yeah.
So just open the hearing. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Thursday, August 31st, 2017 at 7 o'clock at the Houghton Building, 697 Main Street, Bolton, on the application of Bolton Bean Inc., 626 Main Street, Bolton, Mass. 01740 for a new annual restaurant-type wine and malt liquor license at 626 Main Street, Bolton, Mass. 01740. The application is available for review at the Town Hall. Do I have to read that part? Okay. You want to introduce yourselves? Many people know you, but some people at home probably don't. If you could introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Randy Patterson.
Travis Patterson.
Frank Patterson.
Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. You want to start or?
Yep.
Yep.
Just
Who wants to present?
Just tell the board a little bit about what your plans are.
So, we want to get the beer and wine license to pretty much just keep expanding and bettering the business. You know, we want to be able to open at nights and serve some good meals and stuff, but we want to be able to pair it with a good wine or a good beer or something like that. And then, you know, if we do anything at night, it goes a lot better with a beer and a wine, say, than serving more caffeine at night, you know what I mean?
We've had a lot of people from the town who have showed interest in it. They keep asking us, and since we opened, we've been taking what everybody has to say into consideration and kind of moving toward what they want, because ultimately that's why we're here. We've had a lot of people who've suggested like a poetry night, or we've had people approach us about a paint night after dinner time, where people want to come in and they want to hold these like little events with a beer and a wine rather than a coffee. So we just think that having the license will be able to put us at that next step and continue to compete within the town.
Yep. Well, I mean, I know when you guys had come in over the course of time, you know, when the building was getting constructed and you were kind of come in with the Bolton Bean, I mean, we discussed a lot of this stuff way back when, that you were going to start out where you are now, and then over time you were going to look at what might be appropriate things to, you know, add to the establishment, you know, a little bit longer hours in terms of the evening and some other things, and, you know, at the time I thought all that was good. So I mean, I'm fine with it. I think, you know, it's you know, you've been a, you know, great business, and, you know, all the work that you've done to improve the building itself. And I see it certainly as positive, and you guys have been extremely responsible, so I'm 100% on board with it.
So I agree with Stan. So your hours now, you guys close at 2 or 3?
We close at 4 Monday through Friday, and then 2 on Saturdays.
Okay.
Yep.
And so what would, it sounds like there's gonna be an interim period where you might have events in the evening, and then you might move to full service in the
Well,
evening?
Well, the goal is to, excuse me, introduce a dinner menu 3 nights a week.
Okay.
This is a learning curve for the 3 of us, so it is in the works. We don't have a real concrete date yet, but eventually, yes. What we'll do is we'll close the bean at 4 for maybe an hour to clean up and regroup, and then we'll open from 5 to, I think we said 9 or 10 at night
latest.
to serve, you know, a complete different dinner menu with you know, beer and wine and whatnot. And then as far as social events, we want to work that in, you know, possibly, you know, some music or some other kind of event that would draw the residents of town and that way.
So would you be serving beer or wine in the afternoon?
Well, so if we have a beer and wine license, we could possibly, if someone came in, you know, for lunch or something, you know, and wanted a beer with their lunch, we would probably do that. I think that's in line with restaurants that have licenses. And again, it's just another move to grab more of a, you know, a different crowd and.
But we also want to maintain the, like, aura and ambiance of the coffee shop as it is now. We don't want it to become like a pubby bar where people are looking to come and get a beer and that's all they want, so
No, that won't.
it will never happen.
So do we, do you have any more comments?
No, I'm good with all of it.
So we'll open it up to the audience. If you can stand up and identify yourself and give your address when I call on you, that'd be great. Are there any comments? So,
Oh, wait.
Mary Chu, Elkhorn Road. Will alcohol be allowed on the patio?
No, we don't plan on allowing alcohol to go outside. Yeah.
that would be a separate application, like,
I think that's a whole different thing,
Yeah.
because if you see the outdoor restaurants, they got like a fence up or something, it's pretty much connected to the building.
It would be an expansion of the premises, and you do need to have a fence up to prevent the travel of the liquor.
Right, yeah, so we're not planning on
Yeah,
that
so,
indoor.
so are we ready to close the hearing? I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
So move.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I'll make a motion that we approve the application of Bolton Bean, 626 Main Street, Bolton, Massachusetts, 01740 for a new annual restaurant-type wine and malt liquor license.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Take care, John, give this a hand, what's up?
Good to see you.
Good luck, Frank.
God, thank you.
This is the form, the form 43 that needs to be signed by the board right on the left-hand side there.
Next up, we're going to discuss and vote on calling a special election. We have Town Clerk Pam Powell here. You gonna come walk us through the dates, or it's not necessary?
I don't think it's really necessary. I mean, obviously, the election's to fill the seat of the Board of Selectmen. Initially, we had thought about doing it on Monday, November 6th, since Bolton town elections are the 6th. But then we learned that Jen Flanagan has left her seat, and so there is going to be a primary on Tuesday, November 7th. So that's what I would recommend the board to call the election. We'd have a dual election.
Yeah.
And we'd have the polls open all day, 7 to 8 p.m., and 2 ballots. So that's my recommendation.
Right. And then there's a whole process that.
There's a whole process, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, we have to go through the nomination paper process, because we usually have a caucus for the annual town election. And I plan on having those papers ready by next week. I'd love it if the candidate would give me a heads up if they want to give me a call or whatever, send me an email. And then I can prepare the papers for them, but if they come in, I'll help them at that time too, so.
Okay.
And those papers, just one more thing. The papers would be due back to the Board of Registrars on Monday, September 18th. To be on the ballot.
So I'd like to make a motion to call a special town election for Tuesday, November 7th. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
7 a.m.
Yep.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay.
Next, we have a request for permission to hold the 2017 Positive Spin for ALS Bike Ride fundraiser on Saturday, September 24th, 2017. Is Mike for here?
No, Mike could not make it, but he hoped that the board would still take a look at his request and approve it. Chief Nelson has approved it, he's reviewed and approved the event.
Okay.
Great.
So you're okay, right, Chief?
How many years has this been going on?
They've been here for
It's,
15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
I think it is. This is the first time they've actually had to come to the board, I think.
I looked at the maps, there's only a small section where they come into Bolton. And I think they have a rest stop at the country club.
mhm.
I don't have a problem.
I'm fine with it. I'll make the motion to approve the 2017 Positive Spin for ALS Bike Ride fundraiser on Sunday, September 24th, 2017.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Okay.
And now we have a discussion about an additional engine brake sign or Jake brake sign. Is Tom Starr here?
Come on down.
That's on.
How are you?
Nice to see you again. So, Mr. Starr raised this issue to me, probably a couple of months ago, in an email. And at first, I wasn't overly comfortable with it, with putting it in a 45-mile-an-hour zone, which this zone would be. Mr. Starr correctly pointed out that we already have one in a 45-mile-an-hour zone on the eastbound side of 117, heading in towards, not far up above Holy Trinity Church.
Mm-hmm.
So, having confirmed that, then, although it's not an ideal location, I would recommend to the board that the board approve Mr. Starr's request, and we work out a proper place. I have discussed it with the chief, and we can work out a proper placement of it.
The one question I had, I just wondered if, I've noticed Lancaster has them up, and theirs is a little stronger than ours. Their language is use of engine brakes prohibited. I just wondered about, ours is kind of more of a plea, what do ours say?
Limit the use of engine brakes, I believe it says. I don't want to speak for Lancaster, so with that caveat,
Yep.
we believe, the town believes, based on advice that we've been given, that they would have difficulty enforcing that.
Mhm.
And rather than get into that situation, this is why we've gone for a slightly softer wording. And it would be consistent with the other
Okay.
signs that we already have.
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
Mary Chumo, 74 Corn Road. The residents who live in the areas where these signs have been placed, has there been a significant difference in trucks not using these? And I don't need an answer tonight, but I'm just wondering if these signs are working or not.
I can actually speak to that. I've heard from several residents that it has improved the situation, and they're very pleased that they're up.
We have another. Martha?
Yes, Martha?
Martha Remington, 447 Main. I live in one of the zones which has a limit use of engine brakes coming north on Hudson Road before the intersection at 117, which is very difficult. There has been improvement, especially when those signs were first put up. Lately, now that there seem to be more contractor trucks at that intersection, it seems to be ignored a bit more. And so it's kind of iffy. It's worked some, but I think now it's getting more used to being, oh, it's just another sign, and they're not obeying as much. But there has been improvement. There were a lot more signs put up than I remember being initially proposed.
My own personal experience is that they did have an immediate effect, and it lasted a good number of months, but I'd say that it is lessening in effectiveness. Any other comments? Mr.
Just
Stein?
one that this is probably one of the extreme locations where from there, for the next 3/4 of a mile down to Bolton Orchards, it's all downhill. Yes, it gets reduced to 30 miles an hour, but, and we've got the high school, we've got, I'm sure it doesn't qualify for thickly settled, but we have more residents coming in on the south side of 117 there. It's going to affect an awful lot of people. And I would really love to see stronger wording, such as what Lancaster is using, just an outright prohibited rather than limit. I know that in the other direction, from that location into the center of town, it's still 45 miles an hour for about 8/10 of a mile, but the slope is a lot gentler, and I think people see the 30 miles an hour ahead sign, and so they start slowing down earlier. But this is just, we see it as a bad situation, and I know that since I've retired, that sitting there sometimes in the morning, that I can't believe some of these truckers seem to really enjoy it. Most of them are pretty reasonable. Most of them are pretty reasonable. Once in a while, you get the unmuffled one that is just goes on for 5-6 seconds, little pause, and then another 7 or 8 seconds, and as they're passing the high school. So it's just a push for stronger wording if we could use it at that location.
One other positive that we will have, and I'll be going into the detail later on, is once we have the safety zone signage up at the high school, that's going to help slow traffic down quite a bit as well. So the truckers hopefully won't have built up too much momentum before they get to there either. But I mean, it could only help. It could only help.
So where do you live, and where do you want the sign?
Well, I live on 37 Green Road, which is the third house, and our lot backs onto 117. The first 3 houses on Green Road back onto 117. And I think that the right place for the sign is in the vicinity, maybe just west of Sampson Road, near the top of the slope as they pass the intersections there, and now they're concentrating on the downslope at that point.
I would agree. I think that area would make quite a bit of sense, and we can easily sort that out. Depending on what we've got to work with. But I agree, that would be the general area.
Stan, do you have any interest in strengthening the language?
I think we should leave the sign consistent with the other ones that we have. We had a very lengthy discussion when this all came about initially. about enforceability. You know, the trucker has to use their brakes, they need to use their brakes, and in probably many, if not all cases, if we do take legal action, we're not gonna win. So I would say for the time being, I would say let's get the sign up, let's leave it consistent with the sign that we have elsewhere in town. If at some point in the future we wanna change, then we change them all, but I'd say for now, just leave it consistent.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to install engine brake sign in the area that Mr. Starr and Mr. Dunlow discussed.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Have a nice evening.
We have a request from Chief Nelson to hold a citizen police academy in October 2017.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Chief.
Hello,
Good
Chief.
evening, Chief.
Thank you for putting this on tonight. I've heard some interest from citizens in town and other towns that have put on this Citizens Academy, that it's very good, it's good PR, it gets people in to look at the place, understand how the operation of the police department runs. We would run it for about 8 weeks consecutive, one night a week for maybe 3 hours a night, so that it's not take up too much time. And they're gonna do criminal law, motor vehicle law, they're gonna go out and run the radar, do the LiDAR, get to know the SRO and her responsibilities. The basics that we do on a day-to-day basis, that's what we want to show people on the police operation. We do have some things that we would like to try is a, like an hour or two ride-along, and it's pretty much, the policy is, the only people that could ride along are maybe a family member. So I just need approval also to say that it's okay with signed waivers and any of the legal stuff that we have to look at. That if the person wants to go ride around for an hour or two with the officer, we're gonna do that close to the end, so that they can see, maybe do a couple motor vehicle stops and do that. Try to keep it as low key so that we're not, chasing anybody and people shooting them. So we've gotta be careful, but there is inherent dangers involved
Right.
riding around with us. So if, I know all the paperwork came over, a lot of it was boilerplate stuff from other departments
Mhm.
that have run the program, and I just changed town names to our name.
Yeah, and I think it's a great idea.
So is there an age cutoff?
Yes.
How,
Yes,
what's the-
18 or above. So
Okay.
we want to have adults or above. And I need to try to have minimum about 10 people, maximum 20.
Mhm.
And the ride-along would be in the front passenger seat?
Yes. Well, I have enough spare, unless they want to sit in the back. But I do have some extra bulletproof vests that probably I'm gonna make them wear just for safety's sake.
Yeah.
at that point.
Cool.
So, I could sign 3, well, Dawn's not a resident, but I got 2, and it is for just Bolton residents.
Don could ride in the back.
What makes you think I have it, Bob?
Who pays first? Will they have guns?
No, even if they have a permit for a gun, no, they will not be able to bring a gun with them. Sorry, Stan.
On a serious note, the fact that you're repurposing boilerplate language from other departments that have done this, is it fair to say that you're looking to minimize any legal aspects of liability and what the town might be walking into with this?
That's exactly why I put it forward with the Selectmen, that if town council, if you want to send that to town council, it may be a good idea just to, for legal purposes.
But if you don't have to, I mean, your legal bills last year were healthy, so try and take it easy this year, guys.
Brad, can you identify yourself?
Brad Cody, Nashway Road, also has capacity on the advisory committee.
I think it's a great idea.
I assume these have been vetted by other town councils.
That question I did not ask. It did come from Southborough, so I'm thinking they've, probably had somebody look at it.
If you could confirm that it has been, I
I
think
can
that would
do
be
that.
helpful,
Yeah.
because we don't want to recreate
Yeah.
the wheel and spend $180 an hour.
That would be helpful.
No, I think it's a great idea.
So do we want to approve this pending
If we could, yeah,
information from,
I can send the chief a message tomorrow morning, and I'll have an answer as soon as he sends it back to me.
if you could approve it pending confirmation that it's already been vetted by another town council, I think that would be fine.
okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Bolton Police holding a citizen police academy in October 2017, pending, a letter from police chief in what town? Southborough.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Good to see you guys.
All right.
Just so you know on this, this one is already on here tonight. Leave it to the sign request.
Okay. We have a request to join Mass CEC DOER Energy Conservation Program called Heat Smart Mass.
I am Tony Jagodnik, East End Road.
All right,
Hi,
Tom.
Tony.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. So we just completed the Solarize Mass Bolton program, which brought solar to 54 households in the town. And now there's a new initiative called Heat Smart, and it's gonna be run similar to Solarize, only the topic will be heating and cooling technology. And they offer 4 different technologies, and we picked the one that seems to be most popular and that we can do the most in, which is air source heat pumps, which I see there's one in here. And I think it's a good, very efficient way to heat, and I think Don, you have
I have 3 of them.
3 of them in his house already. And, so the other thing is that this time we're teaming with Harvard to get a bigger quantity, so we'll have a bigger base to work from, and also we can share the work, a lot of the work with Harvard, and they are, by the way, voting on this Tuesday night in their Board of Selectmen meeting.
I've already spoken with the Harvard Town Administrator, he's very supportive of the program.
So would this be, because I know a lot of the new split systems are both heating and cooling.
They are, yeah.
Okay.
Both heating and cooling. And I'm trying to get them to also cover central heat pumps, because a lot of the central heat pumps, the technology's improved using the same ideas as they're used in the mini splits, like variable speed compressors, so they've become much more efficient too. And there's a few of them on their list, we're trying to get more put on. That will give people who already have ducts, like people who already have central air, an opportunity to replace the central unit without going to the mini splits. So we think that's a good alternative. And we're running a survey right now. We've got 113 responses so far. And it looks like about, as we kind of already knew, more than half the people who use oil as their main heating fuel. And quite a few use electric, and about a third already have systems with ducts in them, so could use the central idea. And 10% already have mini splits for ductless systems. So I think that's about it as far as an overview. I sent a package earlier with any questions.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Are there any comments from the public?
And just as a notation for the Board of Selectmen, the program requires a municipal representative, and the requirements are such that either needs to be a town employee or a member of an existing board or commission. And so I've offered to serve as a municipal representative, so you should probably include that in the motion, but just so you know.
All right.
Okay, all right.
I'd like to make a motion to join the Mass CECDOER Energy Conservation Program called Heat Smart Mass with Town Administrator Don Lowe serving as our representative.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
All right?
Aye. Thank you,
Thank you.
Tony. Thank you for your work.
And did you want to, do you have the things to be signed, or?
I thought you were reading
I
copies.
have.
Yep.
I have copies. Here it is. And this is attachment B. And this is the CEO letter from the Board of Selectmen. We were able to reuse a lot of the wording here from Florida's mess.
The substitute solar.
Yeah.
Solar.
Before we sign this, can you just
Sure.
make sure
Okay.
where we're supposed to sign? Or, so this one says Chair of Bolton Board of Selectmen.
This is copy, yeah.
Tony, when they reference chief executive officer, does that imply the chairman of the board of selectmen?
It does, yes.
All right. So down below, John's will be your printed name and then signature there.
If you could just push away your copy.
Sure, everyone, other people have to sign it and I'll scan it. Yeah, the proposal, by the way, is due on September 15th, so we have a lot of work to do in a short time.
So what's the time frame for citizens to sign up? September 15th?
That'll be, I think, January, February, it's a ways.
Oh, okay.
We have to become selected first. As a-
Gotcha.
All right, Jonathan, you would sign here as the chair, you would need to sign again down below and then stand and sign.
And there's one more here, Don, just for you. It's an optional form, but it's for the volunteers, and you can just sign for slot there. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Yeah. Great effort. So we have a residential sign request for 218 Sugar Road by Yvette Monstead. Can you come forward?
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Yvette Monstead.
Nice to
I moved
meet
here
you.
about a year ago.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. I am I'm an artist by profession. I do sculpture and metal and clay. And I do have my business certificate with the town of Bolton, and I've been working out of my barn and creating my art pieces. And I've been, I sell at local stores, like I'm currently in the winery. I'm at stores in Acton and Natick and Sudbury at the moment, and I sell at our fairs. I do occasionally have orders where people come to my house and pick stuff up. And I am also working on getting a special permit for my barn to open it up as a art gallery space to sell out of my barn. In fact, I just submitted that to Erica today. So you'll probably see me in a couple months again for that. So this is for my small residential sign at the end of my driveway. Pretty much just as our studio.
I'll just show everybody.
Yeah.
So that's 12 by 24 inch
Yeah,
sign.
it's a small, it's the requirements for residential sign I'm following. The rules.
And yeah.
Has Mike looked at this?
I don't know that he has. Has he?
No, Mike has.
He has,
He has? Okay, and he's okay with it?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Are there any comments? Yep, Martha?
Martha Remington, Main Street. I think this is wonderful that an artisan has decided to expand her business a bit here. I'm sure that the sign will be tasteful and slow people down before that.
I'm right on that curve.
And thank you so much. Welcome to town, even though you've been here over a year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. I'll make a motion that we approve the request for the sign at 218 Sugar Road.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I guess I'll see you in a month or so.
And your building department. Okay, so I'll send you. Thank you.
So we have a request for approval to fly over and analyze images from area gardens, fields, orchards, and forests as part of a drone aerial imaging project.
Carson Roberts.
Carson, nice to meet you.
Jim.
Carson's on.
Al,
Nice
how
to
are
meet
you?
you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Okay, why am I interested in this? This is a business here in town that brings neither significant pollution nor significant congestion, so that in its own right is something we ought to support.
With the head ball photonics, we moved to Bolton from Fitchburg in February of this year. And we're in the office park, right by the highway.
So he'll tell you exactly what's needed here, but roughly they have they're working on a device, a drone, which can overfly wooded and planted areas, identify plants and look for problems. And they want to test this out. When I found out about this, I realized that this is, could be of interest to both the community garden and to the Conservation Trust, and also to the Conservation in general, to Rebecca. I think there's no downside to this. Roughly the reason why they need approval is because unlike a hobbyist could do this, but operating under a commercial pilot's license, they're supposed to have approval from the flyover. So I think Carson can tell you more about this and what they really need.
Yeah, so-
No reason why we shouldn't.
So basically, our company, our main products are Spectral imaging systems. And so they'll take a picture of whatever you're looking at, and for every pixel in the image, there'll be an optical spectrum, generally from the visible into the near infrared, and different chemicals are going to have different spectra. And so a healthy leaf would have a different spectrum from a sick leaf, and an oak will have a different spectrum from a maple. And they're small. The images we have are very small. And the main system that we use, so we're at the office park there, it butts up against the stream, and then there's the forest on the other side. And so associated with the office park is a fairly large area of grass and a parking lot, and we regularly fly there because we have permission from the owner of the property to fly there. The only people who fly have FAA Part 107 small unmanned aerial systems licenses. There's a bunch of restrictions associated with the license. We can't fly over places that we don't have permission to fly over. We can't, we had to, in order to get our licenses, we had to learn how to read maps and avoid restricted airspace. We can't fly over people who aren't involved in the actual data acquisition. The sort of the point of it is, in the long run, we're a company, we want to sell products, right? And we want to prove to our potential customers that we can, with these systems, fly over a field and say, these plants are sick, these plants are not, these need fertilizer, these don't. We also have, we're working in partnership with some folks at NASA who just recently did a bunch of surveys with the Forest Service, trying to look for plant stress with these spectral imagers, particularly to identify ash borers and pine beetles. And the idea is that with this aerial imagery, you should be able to detect infestations faster and perhaps earlier than people just walking through and looking. And the systems that we fly are fairly moderately small. It's a six rotor copter. The total wingspan is about a circle about this big, stands about this high off the ground. Legally can't fly beyond line of sight. And can't fly legally above 400 feet. We'll generally be flying about 60 feet above whatever it is that we're looking at. So if it's a forest, we might be at 100 feet. If it's a field, we might be at just 60 feet or so. And generally our flights only last about 15 minutes, and then we have to sit down and start analyzing large amounts of data. So right now, we're just flying in our backyard essentially. And then we'll sometimes go other places around the country to do this work. What we'd like to do is, because we're new in the community, maybe get a little more involved, and if we could provide some service of flying over town conservation land, and if we could prove that we can see bad stuff, that's good marketing for us, and if we can see bad stuff, that's good for the owners of the land. So that's basically what we're interested in. And the idea is we may, as part of taking off and landing, have to fly over town property.
I'm fine with it.
Sounds good. Are there any comments? Yes, sir.
Bob Sikansky, Norse Road. I guess you may have answered this. If I understand, you're only going to be flying over town conservation land? Would that, my concern is I abut town conservation land in a couple different directions, and you know, are there going to be drones flying over my property? And so, you know, my question is more one of privacy. But if your focus is strictly on the conservation lands, I'm not going to have an issue.
So legally, I can't fly over your property without your permission.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm
But
happy.
to be very honest with you, if I'm flying at 200 feet in the air over an abutting property, my imagery will have your place
I
in view.
understand that. Okay, I'm fine.
Sir.
Mark Shunter, Fox Run Road. Your presentation is timely. I'm also on Bolton's Fire Department here. We had a call this past week for smoke in the area. We traversed the area for about an hour, never found any indication. And we were contemplating if it got any stronger, whether we contacted the state police Air 1 unit or potentially put up a drone. I think it's a marvelous tool for that. I'm not sure of the privacy issues, but certainly getting to a deeply embedded brush fire before it becomes a major one is something that a drone would be a very useful tool.
So to be clear, the main product that I'm working on is this spectral imaging system. I get no real-time view from the drone. So I'll fly around, get some data, and then I sit down and write computer software for a week to figure it out. We also have a couple of small drones that do give live aerial imagery. And certainly I'll give you my card. If it's during normal business hours and you call us up and say, hey, we need to find some smoke, I can send somebody with a drone to give you a hand.
Cool. And technology exists, and just it's.
Yeah. Well, and that, so one of my people flying for you to do, to do something, that counts as commercial work. So it has to be a license, legally it has to be a licensed pilot, and we've got several licensed pilots to do that.
Licensed drone pilot.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's a new license, just this year.
Great, yeah, that would be wonderful to see a presentation down the road, maybe at the library.
Oh, absolutely.
Or, once you know, get to the end or the middle of this.
What I don't know here is what form this has to take. Is it enough for just these guys to just say, yeah, that's okay, and you say, yeah, we got permission? Or do they actually have to write something? It seemed to me that you would want a piece of paper of some kind.
Well, the minutes of the meeting were documented.
Right.
I mean, that would be-
Okay.
That would be an official.
We'll
record.
vote and it'll be an official record.
Okay, and then any particular flight, I would want to coordinate with whoever's in charge of the individual parcel to make sure that everything's okay.
Sure.
And in particular, to make sure that there's no people
Yeah.
walking around.
Like to
Well,
make
if you're
a-
flying over conservation land, there has to be happens to be somebody hiking. I'm not sure we always know whether there's anybody out there or not.
I want to minimize the problem.
You could post something in
Mhm.
advance. I'd like to make a motion to approve drone aerial imaging project to fly over and analyze images from Bolton Gardens, fields, orchards, and forests.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 If you need to reach out to the town for any reason, please feel free.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank you.
coming in.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Barbara, just 2 seconds.
I think remembering it,
So we have the town administrator's report.
I think this is what I did last summer report. So starting off, update on the DPW director's position. The screening committee met multiple times. I believe in total we interviewed 7 or 8 candidates, I don't remember exactly which. We received, I think, 19 applications. We have extended offers twice to individuals, both of which have been declined. So the screening committee has voted to go back out again and start a second round of the process. I will point out that anyone who applied the first time should feel free to reapply if they're so inclined. And we will be advertising, as we did last time, we'll be advertising for 4 weeks. So that's where we are with that. First round, and it's not unusual, you know, when we hired the town planner that we have now, that was on the second round of applications. When we hired our conservation agent that we have now, that was on the second round of applications. I'm aware of a town in the area advertising for a different type of position that is now going out for the 4th time. I would not want to ever be in that position, but it's not unusual that a town has to go out more than once to fill a position. And I believe the 4 weeks will expire the last week of September, if I remember correctly, so we'll be looking to set up interviews late September, possibly early October.
Okay.
Next, the update on the Wilder Road culvert. The Wilder Road culvert is completed. The road opened Tuesday afternoon, actually, approximately 4 o'clock. Everything has been done. I believe by now everything has been cleared out. We had one piece of equipment, I think, that was still there, but I think it's gone now. As a piece of information, the original article, Article 11 from 2016, was for $186,000. The actual bid price was $157,000. We did have no change orders on that project, so $157,000 was the price, so we'll have $29,000 left over from that article. So very pleased about that. Next, the Berlin Road culvert, which is not so pleasing at this point. The work started on time. Contractor got into the ground, discovered peat, which is an unforeseen site condition. So the peat had to be removed Further, due to the excessive precipitation that we've had, a lot of water in the ground, the design, that our plan design was for temporary dams. Temporary dam didn't work in those conditions, so it had to be redesigned, and we had to sink steel in there to be able to deal with the water, still with a lot of pumps, but have been able to deal with water. Also had a beaver dam a little further downstream that caused some additional logistical issues, but nothing that could be overcome. I'm told the culvert is in. I haven't been down to see it yet, but I'm told the culvert is in, and the peat has been dredged. So we're moving forward pretty well now. I've not seen the value of the change orders yet. I think one is gonna be in the neighborhood of $42,000. I'm hoping that the other one is in a similar neighborhood or lower. And then there's also, so right now, the date that we have from the contractor is that the road will be open September 22nd. I'm hopeful that it's earlier than that, but I don't want to set those expectations. So right now, we are saying September 22nd. The original article was for $268,000. The bid came in at $179,000. So we have $89,000 remaining in the article to work with. And at the moment, it is my expectation that we're going to be able to work within those funds, and we're not going to need to seek any additional funds in order to get this work completed. It's not impossible that we may not have sufficient funds, but right now, with the information I have, I think we're going to be okay. So it's fortunate that we did appropriate the amount of money that we did. And although this bid came in significantly under the $268,000, we received, I think, 7 or 8 bids on that one, and only 2 were under the $268,000. So then we had quite a spectrum of bids on that one. Very good contractor. The contractor's doing good work. I actually should have said that the contractor who did the Wilder Road culvert is Cutoff Corporation. They're also the business that did the Sampson Road culvert. This particular culvert is being done by Beals and Son out of Northborough, and they've been good to work with. So we're going to get it back open as soon as possible. I would like to clarify that there was an erroneous report out that the plan was to have one lane open for school buses. That was never the plan. It was never the town's plan. It was never the contractor's plan. I don't know how that got started, but I just went down. There is no plan for that. So when we reopen, and it will be, well, the culvert is already in. So now we just need to get all the other work done, and we'll be back in business. So I think we're going to be in good shape there. Next, the update on the wastewater treatment plant at the Emerson School. That we had at the December 12th special town meeting, we had, we had an Article 2 for $88,924. The work was complete. The work has been completed, and the final price was the bid price, which was $69,200. So we have a remainder of $19,724 there. As you may remember, at the annual town meeting this past May, we had an article for $70,000 to begin a stabilization fund for that treatment facility, with $19,000 left over from that. Perhaps advisory might want to consider taking the remainder of that and putting it into the stabilization fund for next year. We wouldn't have to appropriate any additional funds, and it would be the same purpose for which the money was originally allocated. Also, I hope this doesn't become an issue, but we've learned that because we created a capital improvement stabilization fund, it actually works under the same rules as the town stabilization fund. So we didn't really achieve what I was hoping to achieve, because to take money out of the stabilization fund still requires a 2/3 vote of a town meeting. And the purpose of this capital fund was to be able to react quickly and nimbly if we had an issue that had to be addressed. So I've already asked Minachka to put on her list of things, an article for annual town meeting to change that from a stabilization fund to a revolving fund, so we can access the funds as needed. So that's where we are with that. Update on signage for school safety zone. The signage is on order. We received all the engineering plans from DOT. The signage is on order. Harold has figured out how to deal with the power down there. We're going to be using solar for the most part, wherever we can. We may have to bore one thing under the road, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I'm not hearing anything right now that says the budget won't be sufficient to handle it. I don't know, we don't know what the lead time is yet for the equipment. We're waiting for that, but it's my hope that we can have that done in October. So in a perfect world, we would have had it done for the opening of school, but my hope is that we can get that done in October. So that's where we are with that. One issue I don't have on here, but it's tied into safety, obviously. There was another article at annual town meeting for the speed warning signs, the flashing signs that tell you how fast you're going and how fast you should be going. Those signs are not installed, but we have them. Now we're just working on, again, getting a contractor out to put them where they're supposed to be, and we should have those up, in a relatively short period of time. The locations were already determined in the past by the Board of Selectmen, so we should be able to see those relatively soon. I don't have a date for that yet, but it's still being worked. Update on the Town Hall Portico project. We reviewed the engineering firms that applied. The review committee voted unanimously to hire Red Hawk Studio Architects. We have a signed contract with them. The architect has already started working, and in the next week or so, we'll have a lift out there that will be examining, obviously, the upper levels of the building. We'll be digging a hole to check some subsurface issues relative to the slab, and my goal is that by the time the weather breaks for the spring, we'll be ready to go out to bid and be able to get that project completed as early as possible next year. If we can get out to bid with anticipation of a bid opening for the weather breaking in the spring, so much the better. But I'm really hoping that we can at least get out to bid in March and get that work done. So we're moving on that. And finally, the update on the Camp Virginia Park grant. The grant was submitted on July 14th by this Ashley Davies from the Sudbury Valley Trust. She worked primarily with Ken Troop on that. I learned of a couple of changes to strategy on that. The board may remember that back as far as a year ago, when this first came up, the discussion was about the Girl Scouts wanting, the term we used was to be made whole, and there would be 2 lots in that whole tract of land that could be potentially sold off as housing lots for $200,000 a lot to help defray the expenses of the acquisition. What actually got submitted in the grant was an area of land that does not include the house lots. The assumption being that the town didn't want to get into the business of selling land and developing land. That was a surprise to me. I've already reported it to the Board of Selectmen. I believe it was a surprise to you as well. And now the counter to that is presumably the acquisition price decreases commensurate with not acquiring those pieces of land. So on one level, it could be viewed as a wash from from the perspective of acquisition. What concerns me is the Girl Scouts have said they're not interested in being in the business of spinning off the lots or managing and developing themselves, nor does the Sudbury Valley Conservation Trust wish to be in that position, and they never said that they would. So in order for the Girl Scouts to be quote-unquote made whole through this whole process, somebody is going to have to buy those lots and develop them. And when you see the application in the grant, for the grant, there's a reference to if the town acquires this property, it will ensure that that area will not be developed. And it's true that what we own would not be developed, but there still would potentially be 2 parcels there that could be developed by someone. So if anybody sees that wording, I just want to make it clear that we do not have a proposal, we would not envision at this time, I would say, developing any of the lots. But the assumption is somebody would develop them. So I just want to make that clear, that the town, and up to this point, there has not been, and I don't want to step on the selectmen's toes, but there has not been a formal vote of what the project actually looks like, as far as, committing to not developing any land, or would the selectmen wish to pursue the lots in a separate way sometime. So I just want to get that out there. I just received the full version of the grant application this week, and it's 171 pages, so I definitely not read it all. But there is also another reference in there I just want to make the board aware of. And I tried to extract this, and the file is very difficult to work with. I couldn't even print the page that I wanted to print without printing the entire 171 pages, and I really didn't want to do that. But there is a reference to comment being made that there, in the future, it's envisioned that there would also be a playground there. And we, the Board of Selectmen, have not had any discussions relative to a playground there, so I just want to make that clear as well, that I just want to set the right expectations for the public as to really, for the selectmen as well, where we are. We have submitted, the town has signed off on the submission of the park grant. Maximum award value is $400,000, and that's where we are right now. And we have not, we don't currently have plans for a playground or anything like that. So I just read that this afternoon, so this is real time. That's what I have for my update for this evening. If the board has any questions for me, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
What is the current purchase price?
I would say that it's a little premature to actually answer that. The number that we have been working with, talking about from last year, was $1.3 million in total for everything, including whatever would be spun off as lots. There seems to be some feeling that it may be worth a little more than that. I think that the Girl Scouts may feel that it's worth a little more than that because land prices are rising now. Whether that's a valid assumption or not, I don't know. I'm going to be participating in a phone call next week where I hope to get into that a little bit more. But I think the number that the board has worked with in the past of 1.3 million is probably as good a number as we're going to have to work with right now. If anything, it's probably, it may be conservative, but I think that's the only real number. It's the only number that we have right now. It's been a working number for about a year.
And so that number includes the 2 parcels?
Yes, that would include the 2 parcels. So what we would end up proposing to purchase the land for, that's, we're not there yet. There's still discussions that need to be held by the Board of Selectmen about that.
I'm sorry. My name is Pat Graham, an 18-year resident. I'm a member of the Law Committee. And I have 3 questions with regard to this. I know this, what are we legally entitled to do in using town resources to evaluate a project that hasn't gone through formal procedures? I mean, I'm concerned about
information that's available about Camp Virginia, which I've only been able to pick up from happenstance through the newspaper. I'm also concerned about significant town resources being dedicated to reviewing. There was an update to the open space and recreation plan, which is 145 pages long. I spent a lot of time reading it. I see there's a grant application that's being done, and I'm very much in favor of open space generally, but I'm really concerned about were proper procedures followed in order to secure, to allow us to devote this much time to something that, from what I understand, has not gone through any kind of formal approval process. And so, I don't know if planning board is involved, that's one issue. And I guess, second issue is availability of accurate information regarding what is going on with Camp Virginia. And then thirdly, I understand there's also a commercial piece on the property. There's a cell tower, and it's a revenue generator. I don't know if that's factored into any of these applications.
No.
So it's a question of, somebody has information about this, but I'm wondering how much time should we each both defer to you as Board of Selectmen, and then also as individuals? How do we get the information that we need to understand what's going on, especially if all of a sudden there is more formal action taken to refer it to a vote for purchase? Can you address that? I don't know.
Well, first of all, I don't know what you're referring to by significant town resources. There's a small ad hoc committee that's been dealing with this and applying for the grant, so I would tend to disagree unless you tell me otherwise, Don, that I mean, there really hasn't been significant town resources on this. There's a particular timeline that, due to the Girl Scouts, we have had to follow. You know, they're looking for some answer from the town. I believe it's by the end of this year whether or not the town wishes to purchase the property. And I think, you know, we needed to move forward to apply for the grant prior to that. So it's just a matter of timing.
As far as the resources go, I would not say that the use of town resources has been significant for the Camp Virginia project. There was a significant amount of the conservation agent's time and many supporting people, not just the conservation agent's time, relative to the open space plan.
Yeah.
The open space plan was a requirement of the grant, but we needed the open space plan updated anyway. So the open space plan was due to be updated. We fell behind on that because we didn't have a conservation agent for several months. So the open space plan was not done just because we were applying for the grant. It needed to be done anyway.
Right. So it just precipitated moving a little bit quicker on the open space plan, but really, it's more coincidental that the two were occurring.
Right, there will be additional work that's necessary in the OSRP, and also Don's time in reviewing what's come in recently and to respond to that. So I just think it's important for us to be cognizant and to properly manage that.
Well, I mean, I think we are. I mean, and these are the things that need to be done in order to move the process along to whether or not, you know, it gets to a special town meeting or whatever, so, you know.
And if I may, for one of the other concerns, there was discussion a few months ago when the board got an update on where Camp Virginia was at the time about taking the group that Stan referred to as the ad hoc committee and turning it into a formal subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen. I think it's time for the Selectmen to consider doing that, and I think it might make a good agenda item for the meeting on September 14th to look at doing that.
That's good. Sir?
Brad Cody, 139 Nashville Road. So I have a couple questions on your overall report, Don, but specifically on Camp Virginia. Can you lay out a timeline, right? Because I heard from you 1.3 million, but I also heard that one particular individual made a decision to not include or exclude certain properties, but the 1.3 million has properties included in it. And we're okay with one particular person making the call on behalf of the entire town?
Well, I think that's a question for the Board of Selectmen. From my perspective, you know, I was caught by surprise by it, and I've had the conversation about it, and, you know, I mean, that's the conversation that we had, obviously. And, you know, and getting at some other detail about the project as well, so, so I'm gonna let the Board of Selectmen answer that.
So 1.3 million,
But the
went
1.3
for a
million,
grant.
that's not, I wouldn't, that's another issue. You know, 1.3 million is the best number we have. I don't know that that's going to be the number.
all right.
All I can say is that's the best number. That's the working number that we've had for over a year.
All right, so, and then based upon where everything is right now, can you guys lay out somewhat of a timeline in terms of what the town and what you guys are gonna be doing moving forward? Like, so here's where we are. We heard from Pam, a potential special town election on the 7th. You submitted this grant. What's the next step? When is that gonna happen? Like, in terms of this entire process, at some point we would be having a town meeting, maybe?
Well, the parts that I can fill in are that I think the subcommittee should be appointed by the selectmen at the next meeting. Going to the other end, the grant award is made in December.
Okay,
The assumption has been that if there is a special town meeting called, that it would be called in November. As we historically have always tried to avoid special town meetings after Thanksgiving. You know, we had one last year, but that's something that we try to avoid. Again, that would be set by the Board of that would be called by the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Selectmen would have to decide, you know, where that would fall in there. So right now, I've got the bookends of the calendar of,
all right,
you know, of what I mentioned.
okay.
And in terms of a special town meeting occurring, either some official board or committee sponsors the article. Absent of that, then there could be a citizen's petition to call a special town meeting, and then a citizen's petition to put that article on for the special town. So those are the two avenues that could occur.
Sir?
Bob Sikansky, North Road. If there were a special town meeting on this, would we not then need another special election if there's a debt exclusion?
We would.
Okay.
We would.
In the back?
Martha Remington, Main Street. I remember when this was first brought up, and the young lady, back when Sudbury Valley Trust and the town were sort of together in this, the buying price was quoted at $968,000, I believe. I personally really am upset that the grant mentions part of this acquisition, if it went through, as to being a playground. I think we have other areas in town and have enough playgrounds right now. So particularly, I'm particularly against that particular statement in the grant. And it was mentioned at those preliminary meetings that the Girl Scouts would always reserve the driveway and property that the tower was on for their own, they would be beneficiaries of the rental.
That's actually a good point. I'm glad Martha brought that up. The part where and I think it's about 2 acres, if I remember right, that the cell tower is on was never part of the conversation. It's a revenue generator for them. They certainly weren't going to give that up.
Sure.
Brad Cody, Nashville. I had a couple more questions on the report. One, the DPW director position. So you mentioned Harold with school safety zone. So he's still on board working?
He is. He's working limited hours, but yes, he is working.
So
he's currently working 2 days a week.
All right. So is there a drop dead when he just stops? Or given the difficulties that you guys have been having? Well, not drop dead.
Drop dead when he stops.
In terms of stops working, right? I would not wish that upon him. I really like him. In the difficulties you have in filling the position, right? You know, I mean, we're getting closer towards winter, right? Farmer's Almanac says we're gonna have a really bad winter. Goldenrod's really high, right? Like, are we purchasing sand? Like, are we business as usual right now?
We are business as usual. We are purchasing sand and salt. We have a plan, and Harold will be overseeing, you know, getting us ready for winter, getting the trucks ready and all that. Preliminary work on the budget, that type of thing, you know, that's where his time will be focused, you know, he'll be, as I said, right now, he's working Mondays and Thursdays, because we need to stretch out the time. There's only so many hours he's allowed to work in the year because he's retired.
That was my concern, is given that relative to the difficulty you've been having, you know, bridging this gap, I'm sure is not easy, especially as we're going into the winter.
No, and that's where our focus needs to be, so we need to manage Harold's time. We need to manage Harold's time well, and we need to, you know, we need to make sure that we're getting all the things we need to be getting at and getting ready for budget season in winter. Those are the top two priorities.
And so, yeah, the good news on the Wilder Road cover, Berlin Road, so the numbers, you know, on the ATM, what the number was, the original bid comes in really low, but the change orders are pushing it back up. So it kind of sounds like it might be a push, but so it's partially the guy who bid, you know, screwed the pooch in terms of coming in low, right?
No, I don't think that's a fair statement. These are one was an unforeseen site condition, that being the peat.
Yeah.
You know, no contractors have X-ray vision, so they don't know what's in the ground. And the other part, the contractor followed our engineer's plans.
Yeah.
And because of the wet conditions, you know, the temporary dam just didn't work. So none of this can be blamed on the contractor.
No, but I mean, I was about to say, I felt as though partially he probably came in low, but the other part is obviously the rain, right? I mean, how much would we be dealing with this had it been done last summer in terms of the,
So we need to move on, if you can just wrap it up.
just the portico. Yeah, that money was appropriated 2 years ago. No, it was not this past spring.
The
spring before. So you've got an architecture online. Where, do you think there's the possibility that we might be able to have some bids for this fall? So they're lined up for the fall, winter, and then absolutely ready to go for the spring? Or do you just want to be ready first thing in the spring?
I want to be ready as soon as possible. I don't think it's realistic to be ready late fall and winter.
Okay.
But I want to be able to, worst case, I want to be able to hit the ground running when the weather breaks.
All right.
Great, so we'll move on to Board of Selectmen business. So we have review and approve updated mart drug and alcohol policy.
You have that in your packets.
I'm fine with it.
Is there something to sign? You just make a motion?
Yeah, just a motion, and I'll let Ken Troop know he will be attending the MART meeting, I think it's September 12th.
I'll make a motion that we approve the updated mart alcohol and drug policy.
A second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Review proposed purchase and sale agreement between the town of Bolton and the Conservation Trust for the town common.
I sent the board an email on this earlier today.
So, yeah.
I think it's a good idea we defer discussion until we've had a chance to review town council's comments.
So would you prefer, as we lay out the agenda for the next meeting, would you prefer it to be an executive session or an open session?
Executive session.
All right, so we will plan that for the next agenda. So, actually, you don't even need to vote to pass it, you can just move on from it.
Next, we have appointment of election workers. Do we need to read all these names, or?
And just say as presented on what you've received from the town clerk.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint poll workers for 2018 from the list submitted by Pam Powell, our town clerk.
Second that?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Execute Great Brook Farms liquor license.
So the Board of Selectmen had a hearing back in April. It went to ABCC and they've approved it. So now you just need to sign the actual license.
Well, we're doing that, so next is approved
Two
bills
sets of
and pay.
minutes. Oh, I'm sorry.
The bills first.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could do one motion to approve all of them as presented.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the bills as presented on the agenda.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then,
Two sets of minutes.
can we just sign those, or we have to do an
Approve them,
approve?
please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of April 27th and May 11th.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that's the end of selecting business. Next, we're going to go into executive session.
You may want to read both of those. We can stay in executive session, go into one, not have to go and come back in.
So if you're making a motion to go into, I'd like to make a motion to go
I thought you were
into
gonna start
executive
measuring
session
woolly caterpillar.
pursuant MGL C38 21A3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the fire union. As the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining position, the board will not reconvene to open session. And executive session pursuant of MGL.
Excuse me, could you take this outside, please? Excuse me, could you take this outside, please? Thank you.
C38 21A3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the police union, as the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining position. The board will not reconvene to open session.
Second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then the
Roll call. Keith?